In this episode, I sit down with a guy named Greg Fox of Fox Family Heating and Air out of Rancho Cordova, California. And besides being a nice guy, Greg has an amazing story. And in my opinion, he is the example of what the American dream is all about. He started late in the HVAC business. He started out like many of us do in installation, residential installation, and then he went up to service. He was a long-term employee of a sizable HVAC company. And things got a little weird after a while, and he decided, you know what, I think I'm out of here. And there was a bunch of other twists and turns, but ultimately Greg ended up with his wife to start up their own HVAC business. Now, that's not the whole story, though. What Greg did with application of what he learned in a prior line of work and his experience, what he was able to do is get down to the heart matters. And what I'm talking about with that is the way he goes about selecting his employees. It has more to do with personality and work ethic and attitude. And this is something I think that really gets overlooked. And if you're a technician out there and you've been at it for a while and you're thinking about, wow, you know, I'd like to start my own HVAC company, but maybe I'm too old. The reality of it is you're never too old, and it's all about wanting to work hard and having the right attitude. And I think Greg exemplifies that. So check this out. This is a really good episode, and I hope you get a lot of takeaways from it. So a couple things before we get into this episode. If you want to get email alerts when we drop new episodes of the Process Chiller Pro podcast, just go to our website right here. I'm showing you on the screen, and you can fill out this form, and you'll get emails from us when we drop new episodes. Now, rest assured, you can unsubscribe at any time. We don't do any BS with, sending you these weird pages. If you want to unsubscribe, it's no problem to do that, and it's just real convenient to get a notification when new stuff comes up. Second thing is, on the right-hand side of the screen here, we're trying out this new app where you can leave us a message. So if you have any type of a device that has a microphone on it, you can send me a message, and I'd love to get your feedback about this content, stuff that you'd like to have added, that kind of stuff. So check that out. And lastly, if you jumped over to this episode from one of the social platforms like LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, whatever it is, Twitter, make sure that you click like. And I know you've heard that a million times, but it is helpful to us to tweak the algorithm a little bit so we get a little further reach and be able to help more people out. All right, so without further ado, let's check out this interview that I had with Greg Fox with Fox Family Heating and Air. I love talking to contractors. I interview quite a few people during the month. I was super excited about getting you on my podcast. So I've got a bunch of stuff, so I'm going to try and kind of get through this. I'm going to take one big shortcut in our conversation. I was listening to Mike Mayberry's podcast. I think that's how I found out about you.
Oh, nice.
And he did a great job with your bio. So what I'm going to do is at the end in the show notes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to that particular podcast. So because what I want to do is I want to focus on some other stuff, sort of a 2.0 of the interview that Mike did. So just real briefly, just kind of touch on the main points. Give us your Reader's Digest on how you ended up at owning Fox Family Heating and Air.
Yeah, so I was the son of an HVAC technician. He was a civilian employee at an Army base in Indianapolis. So that's how I was exposed to the mechanical field in the first place. Went to the Air Force. They made me a mechanic there as well. So I did my one term as a aerospace ground equipment mechanic, and we learned about 60 pieces of equipment. And then I got out of the military, ended up bartending for about 15 years. And then by the time I hit 35, I was sort of like, man, I want a real job. I'm married. I have a kid. I don't drink anymore. Like bartending's not fun for me anymore. It was great money, but, so this one company in town gave me a shot, and I was an install helper and just doing all the dirty stuff, and eventually worked my way up to lead installer. I just really absorbed it and I really embraced it. Eventually became a service technician, sold one piece of equipment or sold one system for them, and I knew everything. So I had to do it all already. So I got my contractor's license, and I just ultimately, I went out on my own because my ethics are a little different than the company I was working for. So,
Right. Yep. I remember hearing you comment about that with Mike. Now you're in Rancho Cordova, which is just outside of Sacramento, California.
yeah, on the east side of Sacramento.
Yep. Perfect. I'm from Placerville. So we moved to Oregon about 5 years ago, and so I'm very, very familiar with that area. Do you guys buy any of your parts with RSD in Rancho?
I don't. I'm a Ferguson loyal
Okay.
dealer.
Yeah, yeah,
Ferguson, Sneaky Brothers, Johnstone Supply,
yeah,
uh, and but I rarely go to RSD.
yeah. Yeah, there's a guy down there, John Pullen. He was just awesome. There was a period I was helping a contractor out in the foothills doing wineries, chillers for wineries and stuff, and he was
Nice.
really really cool. So just wondering if you paths have happened to cross. So let's talk about the business climate. I want to kind of find out post COVID, whatever, post COVID 2.0. Who knows what's actually going on, but you're obviously flourishing. And in a lot of ways, your story struck me because you're kind of the American dream, right? And you make you just kind of get the grit that you need and you make it happen. So how is Greg's world right now with post COVID, personally, business wise? What's going on right now?
So I really appreciate that. That's super kind words, Martin.
Yeah.
So obviously the cost of systems has been the most dramatic thing this year. And systems have gone up 3 times. And I know Linux is already looking at another price increase in November, most likely. So it's just intimidating after COVID now, seeing these price increases come. And the scary part is, are the other contractors increasing their prices with it too? Or are they waiting till the end of the year to increase their prices, which could influence whether customers go with us or not on their equipment replacement?
Mm-hmm.
But as all professionals, like your territory managers and, some of the people who have been in the business for a long time say, if those people don't raise their prices, they won't be around for very long.
Right.
And so that's easy to embrace that philosophy. Like building materials, you went to Home Depot and Lowe's, and all of a sudden your $3 2x4 went up to $10 a piece. A $35 sheet of plywood went up to $80, $85 a piece.
Right.
And now, since the commodity of lumber has gone down dramatically, then now the prices have come down at Home Depot and Lowe's and some of those other building material companies. So I say that because the price of steel apparently has stayed the same. And it's pretty much hovered since all the way from 2020 to 2021. And when a lot of people feel like steel is at a bubble, and so that it's going to drop off dramatically here in the very near future. But for a fact that HVAC manufacturers aren't going to drop the prices of their furnaces and their air conditioners and things like that.
You think?
Because, yeah, I mean, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's used to the shock already.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that kind of sticks to my mind, coming out of post-COVID here is just like
Supply chain stuff.
Getting settled down, getting the microchips, getting the control boards, getting the shipping, the container shippers. There a lot of them just sit in the bay for weeks on end. And at the Oakland port, just trying to drop their stuff off, one reason or another. And if any part of that shipping supply chain breaks down, it influences us, the bottom line, here, ultimately ending up with the customer.
Did very many of your competitors disappear through COVID, or did everybody pretty much recover?
I think every single contractor I know, it just hit every record, just blew past any record they ever had.
So if they stayed in business, it's been pretty darn good because this pent-up demand.
Yeah, early in 2020, like that March, April timeframe when we were told to stay home for a month, which was crazy. but we were all told to stay home for a month. That was kind of scary. Like, what's going to happen? How long is this going to happen?
Right.
But ultimately, it did come back around. And
Right.
once we started opening up our doors, I think we all realized, hey, we are essential workers. People need to be cool and they need heat. And this is sometimes for some people, it's a matter of life and death being comfortable in their own homes.
Right. We saw the same thing in the process chiller manufacturing world, because there was that big confusion though in the very beginning when the governors were all shutting things down. There was a confusion as to what businesses are or are not essential, right? So in the manufacturing world, because our plant was in Pennsylvania, we got orders to shut down, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh well, if you don't have an MRI running, because you don't have a chiller to replace it with, it's a problem. So we quickly got turned around as essential, and we were able to stay, in the manufacturing world. So it's just kind of a weird time, this whole pandemic thing. It's just crazy.
Right. And we don't ultimately know how this is going to end up. Like, will we ever get back to pre-2020 life,
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to segue into the labor market, Greg. You talked to Mike about the challenges, the skills gap, which I talk about quite a bit. How is your world in that? Like, if your business, obviously there's pent up demand, you guys sounds like you've got a good amount of volume coming your way. How are you doing to attract people, or do you just have enough presence in the marketplace where people want to work for you?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both of that. So I was just telling Melissa this morning, who co-owns this business with me and works super hard at it, probably harder than I do.
She's the numbers lady, right?
She is. She does all the admin stuff. So
yeah.
I ended up turning my employees, my workers. I say, go to Melissa. She's got the answer for you on that. So, but to be honest, not everything is flowers, and I personally had a hard time not hiring service technicians or maintenance technicians. I really had a hard time nailing down an experienced installer. So I would just love if I could get a couple of experienced installers that I can, keep them busy, which obviously I'm busy. But at the same time, my technicians who sell equipment, they can sell more equipment while my installers do the installs. And so that makes a lot of sense to me. For every time right now, when those guys sell a job, they're the lead on those installs. And I have like 4 guys that I can trust to be the lead on those installs, and then they'll have a helper or take other leads with them, and they'll bust out a job together. But boy, last year I thought I had hired a couple of good installers. One turned out to be more of a helper, and then I was getting close to hiring another one, but I just didn't think I could trust him, with my reputation and putting my name on his work and stuff like that. And you got to be careful with that. You can't just take anybody in, So
yeah, it takes a long time to build up credibility with your client base, and it takes no time to damage it. It's a crazy thing, right?
Right. And I feel super optimistic rolling into next spring that I'm going to be able to attract a couple good installers. So I'm not getting down on it. I really feel confident that that our brand and our reputation out there in the field, we're up to like 12, 13 employees right now in 5 years. And so I know that our name is getting out to other companies and installers and technicians. I know my YouTube channels are definitely drawing a lot of attention to Fox Family Heating and Air. I mean, even some of the other owners of the big companies are like, noticing, they're coming up and, shaking hands with me and just wanting to talk, and stuff like that. So I feel like I can find new technicians pretty easily, and there's a process for bringing them in too. But I can either attract the experienced technicians here and there, or I can bring them in from technical schools, and I have no problem doing that. So.
Yeah, it's real interesting on your model. The business model that you do really kind of made my heart sing. One of the specific ones was when a Fox family technician or quote salesperson is selling a system. You're not shining these guys up and sending them in khakis and the monogram shirts and all that kind of stuff. The same guys that are doing the installs are the ones that are actually selling the gear. And I'm a firm believer in that. If you're a homeowner and you want to have an installation done, it's that connection, right? And I think if they've got a guy showing up there or a lady that is actually dressed like a technician, knows the equipment like a technician, you just instantly have that confidence, right? You don't have this is a sales guy. He doesn't know anything.
Right. That's what I tell them is, like some of the technicians that I've hired, they're like, well, I've never sold equipment before. I'm like, that's perfect because I've got a process for you. I have a sales book for you to go through from front to back with the customer, and you'll have all kinds of help. But yeah, you're the one that already has rapport with the customer. Right. So they would much rather not have to wait until a salesperson, a selling technician, or a comfort advisor or a comfort specialist comes out and tries to sell you this system so that they can nail down their commission.
So let's drill down a little bit more on these technicians a little bit, because like we were talking about a little while ago, there's a skills gap. And what are you seeing out there, Greg, with are the manufacturers do anything? You're primarily in residential, right? You guys don't do any commercial work. Okay.
Correct.
Do you sell maintenance contracts as well?
Yes. We have about 1,500. We have about 1,500 maintenance contracts right now. So.
And that's also in residential primarily?
Yep, all residential. We've completely stopped doing commercial just because we like to get paid now. So. Yeah. And you're using the maintenance contracts to sort of steady out that edge when your business, drops down substantially in the fall and the spring. That you use those maintenance contracts to spread out your business volume a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, I mean, building up that maintenance agreement base forces your company to grow because, I can schedule my guys right now during the really nice weather when nobody's using their heating or their cooling systems. I can schedule them with 4 maintenance calls for the day. So they know they're going to get 4 maintenance calls. You've got 2 hours to do it. You can either blow through it if you want, or you can really spend, an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes going through their system, nurturing it, babying it, cleaning everything like a good technician would.
And building rapport, right?
And yeah, exactly. And that's what I was doing when it was just my company, when it was just me out there in the field was, anybody can do that maintenance, but developing a relationship with those customers is what it's all about. Right. And I know it's kind of cliche, but darn it, do it. Stop saying it and do it. And you don't need to sell something to everybody every time you go out to a place. That's kind of how it was with the other company that I was working with is that, and if you weren't selling add-ons and things like that and turning systems over for new equipment purchases, then you got your name written down on with red marker on a dry erase board where they could easily thumb your name off the board because you're not selling enough, and I never wanted to be like that. And so I never pressure my guys to do that. I tell them the most important thing to do is keep that relationship going with them. You don't need to sell them something every time because what we really want is that end goal, that end game is having the opportunity to give them a quote for a system when it does come time.
Does Fox Family do internships, Greg, to try to get the next generation involved in skilled trades? Have you guys ever considered doing internships?
I totally would, but what really ends up happening is I just hire them, and I just bring them in, and some guys just want to come in part time, 20 hours a week, and sort of learn, get some hands on while they're attending school, and then of course I want those guys after school, so full time. So that's sort of how that ends up happening. Now, right now, I'm sort of in a spot where I have plenty of maintenance guys that are learning to become service technicians. So and those guys, those new people are coming in learning how to install too. But I tell those people the most important thing to learn as a service technician is you need to learn how to install that equipment first. That way you know how it's supposed to work. Then you can figure out what's not working.
This episode is brought to you by G&D Chillers. If you find yourself in need of a process chiller, check out G&D at gdchillers.com, or better yet, give Andy or Paul a call over there, 800-555-0973. Andy and Paul are my go-to guys over at G&D. Whenever I get approached by resellers, end users, even OEMs looking for a quality chiller to be designed and built for them. So check them out. If you do call them, make sure you use promo code CHILLERPRO so they know how you find out about them. G&D Chiller, I love their tagline. It goes big enough to produce and small enough to care, and that's definitely the truth out there for sure. So again, call G&D Chillers. Ask for Andy or Paul, 800-555-0973, or check them out online at gdchillers.com.
When you go out to service it. So I love building that round, so I don't just have maintenance technicians, service technicians, and installers. We kind of do everything here, and I really like that. I think the guys like it too because it gives them some variety.
Now, so what are you hearing in the industry with other owners, maybe, or even through the equipment manufacturers? Is there any energy going into attracting young talent, whether that be kids that aren't college bound? Let's just face it, some kids are just not meant for college.
Like me.
Me too. I was a dyslexic high schooler, and college scared me. Right. So
my family made sure I knew I wasn't going to college because we didn't have the money to pay for it. So
yeah.
And that's not mean. It's just that's the facts of life. Growing up in a blue collar Indiana. So.
Yeah. So is there any talk in the industry? I mean, I'm trying to keep up on all the trade journals and stuff like that, and it seems like all the manufacturers are doing stuff, but I don't know if there's much outreach going out into the younger generation and trying to get creative about making connection with these people and trying to get them in. Is there any activity going on to attract new talent, new kids into this industry?
Yeah, I've seen two contractors right now, mid-sized companies who have just recently started up their own, like their school, so like Company A HVAC school. And so I'm thinking that they're trying to attract, like people who might be looking up HVAC school so that they can pay $18,000 to go to an HVAC school and learn that. Maybe they'll see Company A HVAC school and then realize that is actually paid training, hands-on paid training with that company so that they can come up and learn that way. So the old company that I used to work for, and then a couple companies just recently started doing that. I think it's a really good idea. I don't necessarily have the manpower to do that right now, but I thought that was pretty innovative, and I think it's sneaky. I think it's sneaky good. Good idea.
Yeah, that's good. So what is the core things, Greg, that you look for when you hire, let's say, an apprentice? So let's say somebody maybe right out of tech school, they don't know what they don't know yet. What are some of the technical things that you're looking for? And probably, to me, the most important things, what are the attitude things that you're looking for in these new guys?
So whenever I start considering someone, I immediately, the very first thing I consider is, I can train you to be a great technician, but I can't train you to be a good person. So you have to come into this company as a good person for me to even consider you. And so we have a multiple interview process that kind of weeds that out. And that's like some chatting on the computer. And then it's, having a first interview with me and Melissa, and then having another interview with some of my leaders, my leadership team, so that they even want to work with you, but I think it kind of comes like, when I hire you, I want you to be like me. Honestly, I want you to be like me. And if you can't do that, then, probably got to go work somewhere else. So I'm looking for people who are humble, but confident, friendly, but you also know when to stop talking. Some people just keep going and going. Will they fit in with our team? Will they Will they do things our way? Can I figure out in my head if that person is going to be willing to do things our way and maybe not the way he learned it already? And then I think I just have to know, is this person self-motivated to continue learning on his own? Like when they go to, new people, when they come in, like young people, when they come in, they can't just work their day following, another technician, learning that, go home and then just chill. Like you gotta continue, like you gotta really dive in deep, whether it be like my YouTube channel, or there's so many other guys that have great, there's service technicians and they got their camera on their chest and they're out there, doing videos showing that way. I mean, those are great things. And that's how I learned. Ultimately, I'm just trying to hire people that are like me, that are humble, confident, friendly, and will, just fit in, because I can teach you to be the technician. It's not rocket science.
Do you use any type of personality profile test, like DISC is a big one, Caliper's another one? Do you guys use anything like that? Or
I think technically we're not allowed to do that stuff. Like we're not allowed to give them written DISC tests and stuff like that here in California.
Really? Wow. Okay.
But having learned it and just some training that I have had, and reading books and stuff like that, as continuing to learn as an HVAC owner, definitely in my head I can figure out what these people are just by talking to them. But yeah, I mean that's a good way of figuring people out. It's intuition too, Martin. It's like you can immediately read somebody. You can immediately read somebody in the first 3 seconds that you see them. I think when you try to attract some of these people, I think one of the things that we've done to try to attract people is offering like an online interview. So 2021 and 2020 has taught us that these online meetings are good and they're useful and they save a lot of time. They're super efficient. So this last time when I was hiring a warehouse person, I went through probably about, 15 interviews or so. Every one of them, I did that first interview online. So talking to them just like I'm talking to you now. And I could still get to know them. I could still, like, what did they dress like? I had one guy that was literally propped up in bed, didn't have his shirt on, and his hair was messed up. And he's having that first interview with me. And so he didn't get the job. But then I had,
go ahead, sorry.
but then I had, ultimately the guy I did hire, I had Rick. And he's leaning into the camera, and he's really interested in what's going on. He's got a polo shirt on, and you're like, oh my God, this is my guy, right away. And so what do you got there, Mark?
Well, I was thinking about, you're obviously a people person, Greg. There's no doubt about it. And what made me, my brain went back to what you did before going into HVAC is you were in a what I call melting pot type of a business. You were a bartender, then you were bar back for a while. And I'll bet you that a lot of your guts, as far as being able to size people up and really get a feeling for people, I'll bet you a lot of those skills came from working in a bar. I'll bet you it
Definitely.
did.
Definitely.
In a past life, I was a mobile DJ. My dad was the first mobile DJ in the United States back in the 60s. Anyway, long story short, for a long time I was a DJ, and I developed those what I call spidey senses. You just out and you become a people watcher, right? And you learn a lot about body language. You learn about people's attitudes, and it's one of those skills that they don't teach you in college. It's just not.
That's right. And, extroverts like us, I think we adapt to that, adapt to our surroundings a little bit better than maybe more introverted people. Like my wife, lovely person, she's just introverted and I don't think she wants to know people, and she's just really happy in her own world. I, on the other hand, I'm a people watcher. Like everywhere I go, I'm always aware of my surroundings, who's around me, what they're like.
I get it. I totally get it. Hey, so I want to be time efficient here, and I want to go back a little bit so we can move forward. So I segued over into your experience as a bar back and bartender, and you came to a conclusion in your life that, I want to do something different. You had very high mechanical aptitude, I believe, in high school, if I remember right. And your dad, as you mentioned, he was a maintenance tech. I think was on a military base, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah. He worked on like in the all the like the soldiers' buildings where they lived at, and then the and all the industrial stuff too. So like he worked on it all.
So, and I think that's awesome. So the idea of HVAC was sort of in the back of your mind. I want to talk to those journeyman level technicians that are all over the planet Earth that are considering starting their own business. And let's just face it, there's enough business out there for all of us. There just is.
There is.
So I want to get to that inflection point where, you're one of those guys that doesn't like to sit around and not have a job, and you want to you want to make this pivot from being in the restaurant business, bartending business into HVAC. What was that? What was that crossroads like? Were you married then? How did your wife factor into that? How did all that play out?
Yeah, it was definitely. I was definitely married. I have a son, Eric. We went from making really good money, cash, a lot of times bartending, but no benefits. And basically if you get injured, then you're not working, so because you got to stand and you got to move fast and all that stuff. You need your hands to do that kind of work. So physically, you just got to be there. But to be honest, the owner and I of that company, that business, I think we just, after 11 years of working with each other, I think we just parted ways. And so it was sort of forced upon me to leave. And so I like to be honest about that kind of stuff. And so I was put in a position, do I want to keep doing this industry? And I did go to another restaurant and start to work there. And the culture was completely different than what I've been used to for the last 11 years. Cause I loved working for that bar. It was great. It was just, a couple things. I think it was just me not drinking. I'm not the party guy anymore. And I think he wanted to just kind of bring somebody else in. So it was the right time for us to leave. Right then and there, I needed to figure out, what am I going to do? I knew that my dad did heating and air conditioning. I talked to my aunt, who is, her and my uncle, own an electrician business here in, Roseville area. My uncle was actually the, facilities director for Disneyland for couple decades. So, I mean, the big man on campus there. And so I kind of went to him thinking, man, could I be an electrician? Could I be your helper? Could I try to learn from you? And so I did go around with him for a couple weeks. And then my aunt suggested, why don't you try to get in with one of the bigger companies around town? Just tell them, I'll sweep your floor. I'll do anything, just to show you what kind of person I am. But that takes a lot of humility you really got to humble yourself when you go from one industry. And I get this a lot of time from people from YouTube that make contact with me, and they say, I'm 35 years old. Is it too late for me to start in this industry? No. If you'll humble yourself and know that you're going to be like, when somebody needs you to go into the house or needs to go into the house and fix a duct or take a duct or seal a duct or strap something up or go get that thing, like, you got to be that guy. And if you can't be that guy, then maybe you are too old to be an installer or a technician. Maybe you can still get in as a warehouse guy. But I think it takes a lot of humility to jump industries. And I think if you're in that stage of your life where you're jumping from one career to another, I think there already is some humility there. You're like, because you're confident over here, and now you're going into this field. You're nervous, you're timid, and how do I get into it? So that's what it took. And once I got in, then you got to embrace it. Like, once you're in, then you got to embrace it, and you got to try and absorb anything that's coming to you. Like, you have to be willing to learn their way of doing things, not the way you think you want to do them, or how your dad taught you how to do them, or how you've always done it in the past. You have to be vulnerable and make yourself available to that company to do whatever they want you to do, and it'll pay off.
What was really interesting about what you said, Greg, is you didn't really get into the technicals part of it. You got into the heart of it, I think, right there, meaning that it's a mindset that an attitude that you have to get, and I totally agree with that. I used to have technicians that I hired that, I said this to my current employees or my employees back then. I said, you give me somebody with the right attitude and I can teach them to do anything. As long as they have a baseline of intelligence, I can teach them to do anything. It sounds like that's how you do business too, Greg.
I agree. Yeah, definitely.
All right. So you're in business. So you go into the trade and then you went through, and I'm going quickly here, but you went through and you worked for a big contractor. You touched on this earlier. You learned a lot, and then, you really didn't care for their business acumen. And then there was another inflection point when you decided, hey, you know what? I've got the technical excellence, the foundation laid down here. I've got the right attitude. Tell me about the crossroads about setting up your own business. How'd that go down?
The decision to open their own business?
Yep.
Okay. I was at a point with them where I was like, this isn't the way I want to work anymore. Like, and because of what I told you earlier with the percentages and always having to be, selling and stuff like that.
Right.
So I decided, you know what, maybe this field isn't for me. I'm going to try something else real quick. I'm going to go to school and try to learn how to be a police officer. So I went to school in 2014. I went to like this year-long academy where it's like a part-time. So you have your job, and then like 4 days out of the week you go to police academy. And so those are long days. And so you've got a lot to learn in the police academy, and you've got a lot, you still have your full-time job and a little bit of work-life balance. But my wife is wonderful at that and totally supported me the whole way. Got through 2014, graduated police academy with no dings, no dropbacks or anything. I really excelled at it. I really loved it. I knew I was going to become a police officer very soon. And so I went through, I don't know, I didn't really want to move out. I didn't want to move to Contra Costa County. I didn't want to move. I wanted to stay in Sacramento County. So if I can get a job here, great. If not, then I'll move on. But I was pretty confident I could get one. And I even got to the final interview with this one police department, with the chief of the police department. Boy, I nailed that interview and great conversation. The next thing that I knew was coming to me in my mailbox was an acceptance letter, and that, I just need you to go get your psych and eval done, and then we're going to start this. Well, the letter came in the mail, and I was super excited. I saw it's from that police department, and it said, sorry, you were not selected. And I was like, crap.
So, okay.
Yeah. Big letdown.
Okay.
So I tried a couple other departments, didn't really get too far in the process with them. And, maybe it's because you're a 40-year-old guy trying to get into a field. Maybe they don't want older guys. So, and that's fine, whatever. So I was obviously sort of ticked off at the time, right? Like I was like, well, I'm determined, and I don't want to go back to them.
Right.
And I guess I'm not going in this direction. So I had that sit down with Melissa, and she's like, you know what, Greg, you have the determination to make anything happen. And that's one of the things I love about you. So she really kind of gave me the encouragement I think we can do this. I think you can do this. I trust you. Let's try it. And so we did. And yeah, it just started off with.
The rest is history.
Yeah. And trying to get those first customers, trying to get that first bit of inventory, trying to get your first truck, trying to set your truck up, answering calls, going out to the calls, and just doing everything. It's a huge list of everything. So,
well, I can tell you that, I ran my own HVAC company for a long time. I can tell you that our wives are our strength, and that they have to have a ton of patience dealing with people like us. They just do.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the biggest questions that I get from people that are considering, starting their own business is the work-life balance. This will be kind of the last segment that we'll talk about. And
sure,
that, they're feeling it already. So if they're a journeyman level technician, I don't care if it's residential, commercial, industrial, whatever it is, they're very busy, because we talked about the skills gap. These individuals are very, very busy. They're starting to think about, wow, could I be successful as a business owner? They're sort of at that crossroads that both you and I were at. How do you deal with the work-life balance? You have one son. How many kids you got?
Yeah, just Eric. And
Okay. Okay. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the work-life balance with all the demands of your, owning a business and versus, how do you deal with that?
so fortunately, at the time, he was 22 when
Okay.
so, he's and people are like, you got any kids? I'm like, yeah, I got a man.
Yeah.
So he was already moved out of the house. He's super driven. He's a welder. And so it's just, empty nesters, me and Melissa at home. And I have always been someone, like I play hockey every week. I've been playing hockey for 25 years. At the time I was training for marathons and triathlons and stuff like that. And I'm going to do that. Like I'm going to take time for myself and take care of me so that I can take care of other people. So I'm very bullish when it comes to taking time for myself, and then at the same time, you absolutely cannot forget your wife. I mean, that you guys cannot, people say leave your work at home or leave your work at the job, but we don't do that because we work with each other. So we are literally with each other almost 24 hours a day. And today we're celebrating our 24th year together. So it's crazy that we don't, drive each other nuts, but we're opposite, we're opposite personalities, and we just work really well that way. We don't sweat the small stuff, and we never have. If I really want something in the relationship, then I'll fight. I'll argue for it. But for the most part, I don't care. Like I'm just gonna let it go. And if this is what she wants to do, then I'm just gonna make that happen and kind of go along with it, because it makes life easier for you to just kind of go with the flow. You love this woman, you love your kids. Don't sweat the small stuff with them. So, and you got to take your time for them. In the slower seasons, you're not going to be as busy, right? So like during the summertime, you're trying to build your business up. You're trying to figure out how to keep your truck stocked and all the money and finances and admin and all that stuff, trying to get all that going. So in the summertime, you're getting killed. In the wintertime, you're getting killed. But those off seasons, man, I was chilling out. Like I was recuperating, I was recovering, I was back to making videos and all that stuff. And I think you got to do that for yourself.
I totally agree. I tell people I'm a recovering workaholic because my father owned his own business, and my role model is was my dad, and he was always working. He was a DJ. He owned a bicycle shop. I had to break some habits that I didn't know I had, where I was just totally obsessed with success in a business. And a lot of the stuff, if I had to do it all over again, Greg, I probably would have worked a little bit less. I wish I had your attitude much younger in my life. I've changed. I'm working on it, but I totally agree with that. Having that work-life balance. I work with my wife as well. Having your responsibilities well segmented is a huge help.
Yes.
Whenever we had issues is when we were trying to dip our toe over on the other line. So
absolutely.
And that's just a recipe for trouble. We're really big on date nights. We even when we had our kids living at home, we tried to revisit as often as possible why the heck we got married in the first place.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Get back to basics. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So I'm going to wrap things up. Is there any final things that you would like, words of wisdom to people considering going into the HVAC refrigeration trade, or people considering going into business? I think you've covered some really good stuff. Is there any last minute thoughts that you have that you want to share with the community out there?
I feel like we really covered it, Martin. The people getting into this field need to come in humble but confident, friendly but know when to shut up, fit in with the people around them, and I think you'll go far.
Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect up with me on LinkedIn or leave comments. I'm always around. Or at the end of this video here, you'll see my email address. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Take care, and we'll see you again soon.